Hi, this is Maureen Whelan, and I'm the creator and writer of the comic book Black River. It's a brand new Viking comic book that will be coming out soon. And you're listening to The Graveyard Show.
Welcome to the Graveyard.
And welcome to another edition of the Graveyard Show podcast. I am your caretaker, and the graveyard is open. Hi, everybody. Welcome back inside my graveyard. If you're a new listener to the program, well, it's nice to have you here. And if you're a returning listener, it's great having you back. I hope everybody out there is doing well, staying safe and staying healthy. As you heard at the top of the show, Maureen Whelan will be joining me in just a moment. She's the creator of a new Viking horror comic book called Black River. She's also an author, filmmaker. I'll talk to her about a lot of stuff, including two connections that she and I have to this program, two former guests. We'll get into that as well. The email address is gyspodcast@gmail.com if you'd like to email the program. Thoughts, comments, suggestions, criticisms, whatever you got, you can send them my way at gyspodcast@gmail.com. I also would like to invite you to my latest endeavor. It's called Catacombs of Horror. It's a YouTube exclusive program. The very first episode is up and running, and you can find it on the Graveyard Show Podcast's YouTube channel, Catacombs of Horror. It's a very different program versus this. This is an interview podcast. The Catacombs of Horror is a place where I go to just talk about things horror. And in the very first episode, David Weiner, the director of In Search of Darkness Parts 1 and 2, joins me, and he and I pick what we think best represents 1980s horror in franchise, villain, scream queen, and director. So check it out, Catacombs of Horror, found on the Graveyard Show Podcast YouTube channel. Well, we're not going to waste any time. As you hear in the background, a new grave is being added. And when that happens, it means only one thing. My guest is here, and it's time for me to get to work. Maureen Whelan is the author of the short story Boulevard Souls, which can be found in the horror anthology book A Scream in the Night, and she is also the creator and writer of the new Viking horror comic book Black River. Maureen is also the director and producer of the short films The Suburban Count and A Sin That Cannot Be Forgiven, which was an official selection of the 2013 A Nightmare to Remember International Horror Film Festival. Maureen is also a contributing author to such publications as Girls and Corpses Magazine and Digital Producer Magazine, and it is really a pleasure to welcome Maureen inside the graveyard. Maureen, thanks for joining me. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me in the graveyard today.
Well, it's great to have you here.
Beautiful day today.
It is, isn't it? It is. It's a wonderful day. So let's talk. Why not talk horror on this beautiful sunny day here?
In the graveyard.
Exactly, in a graveyard of all places, right? Well, I want to congratulate you on the new comic book, Black River. Before I get into that, I think that your first job in entertainment was working in animation. Is that correct? So how did you become interested in that?
Yeah, I was actually, let's see. I've always been interested in animation. I was trying to figure out, because I worked in post-production too, so it's kind of at the same time.
Okay.
Did I work that? So I'm trying to think. It's been so long ago. I've been in the industry for decades, like literally. Yeah, so let's see. I went to UCLA Extension for animation, and there used to be a company called Silicon Studios, which had the big old computers from back in the day, brains to learn animation. From there, I met my friend Jody Etchegary, who I give a lot of credit to for helping me along my path. He was a visual effects producer on Avatar and a few other companies. But he went on into psychiatry afterwards.
Wow.
But I met him when I was in Silicon Studios, and he just knew a lot of people. He said, say my name, whatever. It was one of those guys. So I called up South Park, and I ended up working on the South Park movie. It was actually with the help of using his name, really.
Sure, yeah. Connections are everything, so yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So it's South Park bigger, longer, and cut. I also, at the time, back when I used to fax a lot, so I had to fax my resume everywhere, and then I also ended up working at Crest National as just as a secretary, so I could learn more of the post-production side of things. And so I was working Crest National during the day and South Park at night for over a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those must have been long days.
I was young. Yeah, and so I was able to function off of 2 hours of sleep. So it was like, it's interesting. It was a fun time. I did leave for a bit, and I went back to South Park to help wrap it up. And I think during that time, I was at Post Logic also.
Okay.
Which was, I moved on to another post-production studio after that.
So, one of the interesting things about animation, I think a lot of people don't realize this, is how long a project can take. So when you say like South Park, some people may think, well, that's kind of a tough one, right? Because they think of the TV show. But when you're talking about a movie, it can take 3, 4, 5 years to do. So when you started South Park, how long were you on the movie?
It was about a little over a year. And the thing is, at that time, they were transitioning to Maya, which is a 3D program. So the actual TV station, originally I think it was using I forgot what program they were using. I think they were more vector-based back then, I want to say. And then when they, for some reason, got in the movie, they decided to use Maya and just take the 3D images and make them look 2D.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
I'm not sure how open they were about that, but yeah. So it was also a transitioning period, and then what happened was they cut it, and then they went to review at studio, and then they wanted to go for a rated R, so I had to go back in, and then they had to add some more, clip out a few things I remember doing, which were pretty wild in language.
Yeah.
But yeah, they ended up having to re-edit it later, and those are the longest nights of school, I believe.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing.
And they finally wrapped it up.
Yeah, I remember when that was coming out and hearing about, and even just recently, I was just reading another article about that film. There was a lot of re-edit, going back in, with trying to get rated R. They really pushed the envelope with that film. I'm sure it must have been quite an eye-opening experience for you too. Working on such a, not even like an adult, cartoon like that, but the process of starting and then having to tweak and then going back and tweaking, and with all the different types of technology going on. Would you say that a lot of that still stays with you today?
Yeah, what's funny is because it was assistant animator and assistant modeler, so most of the stuff was pre-stat, and then we just edit it. Like, we did little animation, little texturing here and there. For assistant animators, we mainly did the mouth movements, which is interesting. It's just what mouths around, or the Terrence itself head movement.
Yeah.
To make them talk.
Yep. Yeah.
But then we eventually, towards the end, we had to fill in and start doing some of the texturing for people. But I know, I was going to say, it does stick with me because of the filing system.
Okay.
You always had to make sure everything was in a certain filing system, was in a certain order. And actually, fast forward, it did help me later on with VOD, doing like production management at post houses for VOD, because, it's all digital now.
Yeah.
So to help, we can, like VOD and packaging, just, you need post art, metadata, and video, and you stick it all together in a package, send it off to whatever company needs it, and you screw with it. But I think that's what really stuck with me, is the actual file formatting.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's like anything, right? It's like if it's all about, like, we're all kind of these high-tech librarians, right? It's like you have all these files, exactly. But if you don't name them right, or if you don't take care of them right, you can lose them very easily. If you mislabel something, it can throw everything off, because it's not just you, and it may not just be me working on it. It could be, several hundred people working with that, or need that file.
It can be costly.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much digital, as more convenient digital's made everything, it's also kind of made everything a lot less convenient, right? Because it just, now you just have to, keep track of everything. Yeah, exactly, right? It's either, it gets clipped, it gets lost, it gets deleted, it gets, whatever. And it's just like, oh my God. Well, let's talk about your comic book. So Black River is the name of your comic book that will be coming out soon. Why don't you tell everybody out there what the story behind Black River is?
One day I was sitting at a bar with my coworkers. I'll tell you how the story came up. So I was working at at DH Institute, it was the Animation Training Center, and this is way back in the day. I was sitting there at a bar drinking a beer during lunchtime with my coworkers, because we could do that back then.
Oh yeah.
Work. This is back in the day. But and we were just thinking, and I was like, maybe we should do something about Vikings and stuff. And, they can kind of evil, and they do raise from that. But, so the story that I based it along, so Dublin, Ireland is where the big Viking invasion was. Means black pool, right? So, because in the story behind Dublin is all the Vikings killed people and blood ran into the water and turned to black. It's like the story I always heard, right? And my dad was actually Irish from Ireland, from Clonmel, Ireland, Southern Ireland. I have a lot of cousins out there. So that's where the concept came from. And I remember once when I was visiting my cousin, one of my other cousins and I were walking along somewhere, he made a joke about, the Vikings are buried there or something. So I don't know. Like Irish are big on like ghost stories and stuff. My dad used to tell me a lot of ghost stories. So that's where the concept came from. Black River obviously means, the black is blood pouring into the river. So I made it loosely based on the concept because of historians, I know I'm being slandered or beat upon for like getting anything wrong because I am an Americanized Irish person. I got Americanized. And it's funny because when I was doing the comic book, I realized, I'm like, oh crap, the cabin. It's like little things to remember, like American cabins are more wooden and like Irish cabins are more stone. The guys kind of fix the kids play either way, but it's interesting. But that's the concept that came from, and so it's based around a girl and her strength and trying to fight the Vikings. So the younger girl, she has a flashback. She goes back and forth. So it starts with the beginning history, and then it moves forward to later on, and she kind of triggers a sequence of events from an accident, and the Vikings keep going after her, and she's the actual key why they're there.
So
I'm not gonna get too much more of that.
Gotcha. So did you have to do a lot of research for Viking history, or was this something that you had learned about or already through your family or through just reading or maybe watching Viking films or documentaries, or is this something that you, when you started doing this comic book, you're like, I gotta kind of go back and do a lot of research?
Some of it just came to mind, I guess. The guys caught a few things too, so because they're big Viking buffs, I guess, because they're comic guys.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I do have a lot of books on Ireland, and also I do have a Viking book I bought out years ago, and I originally wrote it as an animated script, like a half-hour animated script, and I did pitch it before, and I did have one studio interested, and they wanted me to make it feature length, but at the time I was too busy to actually write and to think about it, right? Burn out. But then later on, I pitched again and to another major studio, and the guy got interested in me, and it got weird, so that went away.
Oh.
And then,
oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get into those things, but you hear girls talk about those things. I'm not going to get into them. And then later on, my one friend was going to start an animated company, and he had some funding set up, but then this funding fell through. So finally, when I came, one day I was sitting around, I thought, maybe I'll do it as a comic book. So I hit up Jason Duke from Better Comics, and I asked him if he and his youth would be interested in sending him the script. And he's like, just do a little comic book. And I'm like, okay. And then it took me another couple of years to get the money together, so let's do it.
Wow, that's great.
So yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, it's great that, you didn't give up on it. You just, stuck with it and just kind of passed it around, and, all of a sudden now here it is as a comic book, which is great. Because I mean, I'm a big comic book reader. Well, I shouldn't say big comic book reader. I used to be when I was younger. I'm kind of catching up on some stuff now. But the process of creating comic books is something that's always kind of interested me, because it's a side that I've never, worked in. So when you create a comic book, how do you determine like the page length of the issues? And then, how many issues do you have to plan ahead when you come up with a concept like this?
It's funny because I kept asking Jason that because my script was interesting because I have it written out as an animated script, right? So for me, it's 30 pages. But when he broke it down, it would be like more pages. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. When I did the first issue, I wanted to do the first issue just to get going because it's basically split in half. It's a script split in half of an animated script.
Okay.
It turned out that I cut off at a point that it was a cliffhanger, and at that point it was about, I think it was 24 pages. So 22 and 24 would cover. That makes sense. Yeah, so I cut off. So the content is 22, and the actual book is 24 pages.
Okay.
And that's, I guess, a normal, smaller comic book size. And that's where the cliffhanger is at.
Yeah, because it's always interesting to me because, like, especially when you look at the old comics, right, you always have all the ads in there, so it kind of shrinks the story down, I guess, which I never really considered as a kid. So that's really interesting. So you found that all of a sudden things started to shrink down. So you had to rework some of the story for the first issue?
Yeah, well, no, he actually, because the way I wrote it, because I wrote it for animation, and I guess it translated well for him to use for a comic, because I already had the scene set up and everything. So for him, it stretched. So comic book-wise, yeah, the pages for me, they stretch longer for comic book than they did for writing, if that makes sense. So it seemed like at one page of an animated part of the script would probably equal about 2 pages of comic book, because you got to break it down into scenes. Okay. So their scenes are visually different than if you think of the animation. I don't know if that makes sense.
It actually does. Yeah,
because they do the panels. That's what it is, because they do panels. So you take your scene, and whatever was a scene in your head that would be movement would be broken down into panels.
Okay.
So they take that and translate into panels, and that panel can stretch to be like usually. It turned out it seemed like I think 10 pages of the animated script ended up being 20 pages of a comic book.
Gotcha. That's really interesting. Yeah, I never really thought about that. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yes. Well, am I making sense? Oh no, it's early. Am I trying to sound smart? Do I sound smart?
No, you're doing great. This is making sense because it's not
in a graveyard.
Yeah, exactly right.
Where it belongs.
It's one of those things where I think that it's hard. It's a hard thing to kind of describe, right? Because you know it doing it, but then you're trying to describe to people who may either be fans who are getting it, or some may not, and then you get other people who are just kind of like, I have no idea what you're doing. No, I totally follow what you're saying, because because it's about the art. It's about you writing the script, and I'm sure over time, as you were doing this process, it's just something else now you've learned how to do, right? So now I'm sure at this point you're probably going, okay, well, this is what I want the scene to be. Now here's how I'm going to break it down. I mean, I'm sure you've learned a ton from doing this.
And, it's pretty, because I'm one of those, even as a director, or even when I was supervising, I'm pretty laid back. It's like, I like to let the artist work, and I learned that from working in post-production. Because, as an editor, you have editors sitting in their little tiny rooms all day long editing. You're bugging them, they're going to get distracted, and then it's going to take longer. But I do that also with artists. It's like, well, because they're artists, I gave them a lot anyway. It's like, just do it. There's only a couple of tweaks. And then for me, I realized, they put in the text, There's a couple times the other times that was my screw up when I was like, that doesn't sound right. When the text translated a little bit to the actual image, because it was coming from like an anime script to an image, I would have to reread it and then think, maybe I can reword that. So I had to reword a few things, but that was on my part.
Does the technology now, though, help out, make it easier for you, like when you have something like that happen, where you go, oh, you know what, the text it's not reading right, it's not sounding right, I want to change it. Does it? It's not. I'm sure it's not as big a deal as it probably used to be back in the day, right? I mean, it's probably not as catastrophic if you need to make a change, right?
Yeah, I believe it was all digital because see, everyone's remote. So I would funnel everything through Jason. Jason just used his guys. So he had me choose an artist. He's like, here, look at these guys. Do you like this one? I'm like, yeah, I like those guys. So, and then he has his own guy that he uses for lettering. So you got the drawings by Maureen, because he goes by marketing. He found that interesting, like, so mysterious, right? So you got color by Diego Vasquez and lettering by James Reed. Because Reed's last name is easy. But, so it's just a separate, it's like a different process. It goes through different guys at a time.
And I'm sure they'll all appreciate you giving him a shout out for that, because, not everybody does that.
Oh, really? I feel bad. Jason's really like, oh, thanks for getting my last name. But, I never met this. It's funny, you don't even meet these people, right? Because they're all remote.
Well, of course.
To me, I just have these images of what they look like to me, especially because I've seen their work. But they did amazing. It's really pretty artwork. I really like it. I'm like, wow, it's so pretty. And I hardly, I didn't really have the guys changing. It was just my fault with lettering most of the time, because I would just reread things. Yeah, so they would puzzle together, and Jason would send it back to me, and I would just approve it, or sometimes the guys would catch things, like when the cars realized the girls were different. They wanted to do different looks on them. And like, yeah, go ahead. I'm like, yeah, that's right. It is the same color. It's just a little thing.
Well, it's good to have multiple eyes, I'm sure, especially for animation, right? Like in audio, we always say, more ears are better,
Exactly.
Because it's like somebody will hear something that you're like, oh my gosh, I totally missed that. So I'm sure visually it's like, oh, hey, somebody caught something, and 15 people could have looked at the exact same thing and been like, holy crap, I totally missed that. So that's always a great thing. And the cool thing is that there's a teaser trailer now on YouTube, so people can catch it. When is the first issue scheduled for release, or is that still kind of pending right now?
No, I actually have it, the ink and everything done. I do have to get them printed, but I'm having Jason use one of his guys. But how, I guess, comic book guys, indie comics is kind of doing the way that they use Indiegogo. So my purpose with the Indiegogo, which I have to finish setting up, is to have it so people can purchase the first issue, but also put the money towards the second issue. So I'm going to have some little perks on there, so it's just to help get some more funding towards the second issue. Yeah. Because it does get expensive out of pocket.
Now, are they going to be able to purchase a physical copy and a digital copy, or is it just going to be physical?
Right now, it looks like it's going to be physical.
Great.
I haven't talked to Jason about digital. I was looking into it, but I'm not sure. It's like up in the air, maybe later. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
It's because I'm still getting used to how you sell the product, right? Because I'm still used to filming how it's run. Comic book wise, most of the major comic book shops are shutting down, like Meltdown Comics, which was in Sunset. I don't know if you remember that place.
Oh, that's too bad.
But yeah, so it's just trying to find a new outlet for indie comics. There's like some small indie stores around here. So with with Indiegogo, it's easier to funnel that, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah.
For an ordering system, to make an ordering system for anything. But yeah, so I'm going to have the physical copy for issue 1, and you can put money towards issue 2, and then have stickers, little tiny stickers made. And then I'm thinking about doing posters. I want to do T-shirts, but the printer guy is saying the ink's kind of heavy because it's got a lot of color in it. So I don't think I'll do T-shirts.
Well, the good thing is that you're basically becoming an entrepreneur now, right? Because you've gone now from being the artist and being on the artist side of things now to learning the business side of things, which is great. This is going to give you a whole nother skill set, because who knows where that'll take you, right? I mean, you've worked in post production, you've worked in animation, you've worked as a filmmaker and an author. And now here you are doing, creating a comic book as well as writing for it. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive.
What am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. How are you going to tell? I don't know.
I think it's pretty cool because, I think we kind of live in that age now where, our parents and our grandparents kind of did the, one job, for their life, and that was that. And I think we're kind of in that age now where you're seeing people constantly changing and evolving and adapting. Obviously this last year has taken that to a whole nother level, but, certainly learning how to learn all these skill sets makes you even more valuable, because if you want to do the comic book and the comic book's a success and you have that, if you decide for whatever reason the comic book isn't what you want to do, or if it doesn't do well, you now have that skill set where you can go somewhere else and go, hey, this is what I've done. And I mean, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty cool, I have to say.
Thanks. It's a lot different. It's interesting because it's been fun. I like it because I just like seeing things created. I like seeing the creation process, and I just find artists interesting to see what they come up with. I think it's fun. I know Jason's been wanting me to write more, and I'm thinking about expanding it. It's just, you get busy, and I'm not that person that's creative all the time. It's like every once in a while my brain goes, I got a great story in my head. My ADD will do something else. And right now I just have so many other things going on that's hard to just focus creatively,
Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm right there with you. I always joke my ADD's taken me to, like, if I start one book, I start reading 4 books at the same time. It's kind of annoying. So I have like 4 or 5 books, all going at the same time. And I'm kind of like, I don't even know what plot is for which book anymore, but I know I have to finish them all.
You're combining it. I got a story now.
Exactly. Some people will be like, what the heck are you talking about? You've just combined 3 different storylines for the same book. Like, well, it is what it is. Hey, listen, before we go, I just wanted to say, you and I have multiple connections now. So you had your short story, Boulevard Souls, included in the horror anthology book, A Scream in the Night. It was assembled by Raina Young, the queen of Bay Area horror. And that book has 13 stories, all written by female authors. So I was just curious with that. Did Raina reach out for you to do a story for that book, or was that something that you'd already done and then you just submitted it to her and she picked it?
But she asked me, she's throwing around the concept of doing an anthology book, and I said, well, yeah, maybe we should. And she talked to Nick over at Black Sheep Books, and she came back and she's like, oh, she wanted to do one, and she wanted a story for me, and that's actually a story that I did have before on hand, because that was a story that I actually pitched again somewhere else, and I heard cricket basically, and I said, well, I have this one story, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
So I sent it to her, and she liked it, so she included it in her book. So that's how that story came out.
That's great.
But
yeah, it was so funny because
Raina and I talk every day. So
oh, do you? Oh, well, please tell her. Please tell her I said hello, because it's funny with Raina. So when I did the first iteration of this show back in 2009 and 10, I was at the Fangoria horror convention in 2009, and it was the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I was there on a Friday. I got there early, and there was like nobody there. It was just because it just started, and I wound up meeting Raina there, and then a couple other guests that were on my program a lot. Shannon Lark, who was the Spooks model for Fangoria at the time. And then I met Stacy Ponder, who was friends with Shannon. She's a filmmaker, writer, blogger, everything. So, but yeah, I met Raina there, and then Raina was on the program I think 3 times from 9 to 10, and then The Graveyard Show podcast also sponsored, was one of the sponsors for A Nightmare to Remember. And then Raina was really nice enough to award this show with an award at the event. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it up there for it, but yeah, it was really cool. So please tell Raina hello.
Wait, did we meet there?
I wasn't unfortunately able to get up there. I think it might have been.
You were okay.
Yeah, it was in 2010. Actually, I think, weren't you on the guest list for that one?
Yeah, because I film screened at that one.
Yeah.
I also screened at Astronaut Film Festival right before that.
I now have to go look through my archives, because I could have sworn that maybe you were on the program for that or something. Now, I know you were involved with Raina for her documentary on women in horror.
Yeah, and I've been involved with a few of her films. I was in that Monster of Golden Gate, and then I helped her with a Doll Murder Spree.
Okay.
Which is out through SGL Entertainment. So her show, I work at a news station in the high desert.
Okay.
Called KBBZ TV, and at 33, it has a Roku channel now. So we do air her show on Saturdays.
Okay, yeah.
In the evenings, like around 7, I want to say, and then midnight. So I air her show on the weekends too, along with Monster of Golden Gate. And I also will loop in my short films every once in a while around her shows.
That's so funny. It's such a small world. Yeah, I have to. Please tell her hello. I'm gonna get her back on the program. I just have to figure out my schedule and everything else, and getting her on the program. She was great. And I know, she's got the YouTube. Yeah, Miss Misery. Yeah, she's got the show going on YouTube as well, which is great. Yeah, please tell her hello. And then you also you know Marjorie DeHay, who of course is the writer and director of the film Bottle Monster. Now Marjorie also has a story that was included in A Scream in the Night that I talked to her about when she was on my program a few months ago. So did she meet Raina through you, or did she know Raina already as well?
No, it was through me. I thought I said that she should put a story in.
Gotcha.
I told her to. Yeah, I hit her up for it, and told Raina to talk to her.
Very nice.
So, and I know Marjorie's doing really good with her film Bottle Monster.
Yeah, they've been winning all kinds of awards, all these different film festivals. It's great.
I'm proud of her.
If people want to find out more about Black River, where can they go to find out?
It's easier. Just go to the Facebook. I'm not going to put up a bunch of pages because I'm too tired. And
sure.
But so the Facebook is Black River Comic Book. If you type that into Facebook.com/Black River Comic Book, that's where they can find all the information about Black River. Or sometimes you just go on my social media. Like if you go, I think it's MBW Whelan. I think I have my Instagram set up then.
Okay.
I've had a lot of postings on there too, and then my own Facebook. Sometimes I'll do updates, but I do a lot of memes too, so you'll just get lost.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on everything. You've been listening to Maureen Whelan. She's a writer, filmmaker, writer of the new comic book, Black River. Keep a watch out for it. It's going to be coming out soon. Maureen, hey, listen, thank you. It was really great having you on the show. Thank you for joining me on the program.
And thank you, Mr. Caretaker. I really appreciate it.
And as I put this interview to rest, I want to again thank Mo for joining me on the program. It was great to finally talk to her. We've been in communication through email over the last few months. I reached out to her about coming on to the program, and it was nice to finally have her on the show. It was great talking to her. There's a lot of great stuff in there, especially if you're interested in animation or comic books, and that's the kind of stuff that I just love to talk to people about, is how that whole process goes about. So hopefully you learned something out there about the process of animation and comic books. I know I certainly did. And again, Black River is going to be coming out very soon, and you can catch the teaser trailer for the comic book on YouTube. There's about a 1.5 to 2 minute teaser trailer that is available, and it's the artwork that's set to music, so it's really cool. So check it out. It also goes to show you how small this world is. I had no idea that Mo and Raina knew each other. I kind of came across it by mistake. It was kind of a weird circumstances where I was doing some research, and I saw Paul Overacker's posts about his film Bottle Monster. And Paul and I have known each other for a long time, and saw his connection with Marjorie as the writer-director of the project. And then I saw her connection with Mo and Raina, and it was just kind of weird. Really quickly, what's so funny with Raina's like haunting my graveyards somehow, because last year when I was getting ready to do Tombstone 17, it was originally going to be when I was still doing re-airing old interviews, and it was going to be the first interview that I did with Raina on this program from 2009. And at that point, I decided I figured out how I wanted to pursue the new show in terms of doing new interviews. And so I scrapped that, and now here I am talking about Raina probably more in the last year than just uploading one interview that I did with her. So she's haunting my graveyard. So I definitely am looking forward to having Raina come back onto the program. And Raina, if you're listening, hello, and fire me off an email. Let's reconnect. It'd be great to have you back on the program. Just great stuff. She works really hard up there in San Francisco, and it's great to see after 10 years that she's still doing her thing up there. It's great. In the meantime, I want to remind you again, the email address is gyspodcast@gmail.com, gyspodcast@gmail.com. If you have any thoughts, comments, suggestions, or if you're just part of the horror community and you're looking for some promotion on a project that you're working on, fire me off an email. The Graveyard Show podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and everywhere podcasts exist. And the show is also available on YouTube, the Graveyard Show podcast YouTube channel, where you can also catch the first edition of my new program, Catacombs of Horror. Next podcast, I'm going to be joined by Jacob Johnston. He's the writer-director of the new film Dreamcatcher. So come on back in March. I really look forward to talking to him about his new film. If you know anyone who's a fan of horror, please invite them to enter the graveyard. New listeners and friends are always welcome. Hey, if you also get a chance to rate the show on any of the podcasting sites, I would really appreciate that as well. It's something I normally don't ask for, but I figured I would this time. If you get a chance, rate the show. If you would like to leave a comment about the show as well, that is always greatly appreciated too. Well, all right, my friends, that's going to do it for me. It was great having you back here inside my graveyard. Please stay safe, stay healthy. I see a finish line. I just don't know how close we are to it. But we're getting there. And always think of it like this. It could always be worse. We could be somehow reliving Groundhog Day and being back in March of 2020. So there's always that. All right. I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. And as you exit the graveyard, I would like to remind you to please lock the gate behind you. We wouldn't want anyone to get out. Until next time.